And now, you're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's RBLR Sports.
Ahoy and Army mateys, gather around and prepare for another swashbuckling adventure on RBLR Bucs. It be January 8th and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers just plundered the New Orleans Saints, coming out victorious with a hearty 27-19 win. Now the Bucs should be charting the course straight for the Washington Commanders, our next do-or-die clash, where the winds of fortune could either carry us to glory or leave us stranded on the shore. The stakes be higher than a crow's nest, and we're ready to sail straight into the heart of the storm. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome into RBLR. I am one of your co-hosts, Musab, and we are so excited to have you join us. And a friendly reminder, as always, we want to hear from you, ye loyal crew. Drop your comments in the live stream. Let's get some bold prediction, those hot takes sailing. You know the drill, questions, wild ideas. We're all ears for you. And as you know, this show is only not just me, but I got my two hardy mates who always bring the fire and the insight. They're ready to go over the Saints game, and I know they're excited for playoff season now against the Commanders. So first up, we got the man who's always got the compass pointed in the right direction, breaking down stats and analysis like a true sea captain. He be none other than the legendary Zach Blaine. Zach, ye ready to chart the course for this do-or-die battle with the Commanders?
I'm nervous, brother. I'm excited, but it's gonna be a rough game, man.
Yeah, seriously, it is. I mean, now that it's playoffs, it's, as I mentioned already, it's do or die. And I mean, the Commanders we played week one are not the Commanders.
Very different team.
They're not the Commanders like they were in week one. It's a whole different team now. And my Lord, Jaden Daniels can cook. So, but before we continue on and on, you know, we can't continue without introducing the final puzzle piece to this iconic trio. He's got the fire of passion and deep knowledge. He is always spitting facts and keeping the crew energized. Let's make some noise for the one and only Mr. Carter Brantley. Carter, what's the good word, man? And are you also a little bit nervous as Zach and I are, or talk to me, man?
Yeah, I think you'd be foolish not to be. You know, every team in the playoffs is in for a reason. You know, none of them are going to be pushovers. None of them are going to be a walk in the park or all sunshine and rainbows, as you'd like to say, Musab. You know, it's the Commanders. They're tough, man. They've got some absolute firepower on offense, and by firepower, I mean Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin. So, but you know, that's a lot of firepower in just those two players. So, it's tough. You know, they can be really dangerous. But we'll get into specifics and all that. But first, I did want to focus a little bit on the Saints game, because you know it's what got the Bucs here into the playoffs. It's what got them their fourth straight division title. There's time to celebrate. You know, I know that it's kind of ho hum. It's the NFC South, blah blah blah. But you know, there are three other teams in the NFC South. They didn't make the playoffs. There are a bunch of other teams in the NFL that didn't make the playoffs. So it's still something to get excited about. But the big takeaway, I think everyone was focusing on Mike Evans, like you mentioned, Musab got to 1,000 yards, final play of the game, very dramatic. It was a lot of fun to watch. I'm not going to lie. It was a blast. It was a bit of a tumultuous game, but to really put an exclamation point like that, not only on the game, but on the season, it felt really good. It felt really nice because there were a lot of ups and downs. It was kind of a microcosm of the season, if you will, this specific game. But focusing specifically on Mike Evans, because that's the big talk around town, so to speak. Forget the Hall of Fame, because anyone that says he's not going to the Hall of Fame is just trying to be different. They're just trying to hate, you know, whatever the case may be. I wanted to hear y'all's thoughts in terms of ranking against all-time Buccaneers, because I think this is a really interesting conversation to have. Where does Mike Evans line up in terms of all-time Bucs? Zach, we'll start with you, man. What are your thoughts on Mike Evans overall?
I mean, I think it'd be crazy to say he's not number one.
Really? Wow. Okay. Going all the way.
Yeah, I think that he is. There's debates to be had, I would suppose. Like, you got Barber, Sapp. Like, we've got some really good Hall of Fame players. But as far as, like, my history of watching football, I would put Mike Evans as number one, the number one overall Buccaneer, in my opinion.
Wow. All right, that's impressive. I mean, definitely, I think without question, the best offensive Buccaneer of all time. That's not really in question. But it's definitely an interesting conversation to have. And a couple of names you didn't mention, Leroy Selman and Derek Brooks. I mean, Derek Brooks is kind of he's tough to beat, man. He's really impressive because not only is he one of the best Buccaneers of all time, he's also one of the best at his position. Like that's really remarkable in terms of coverage or off ball linebackers. Like Derek Brooks is definitely on the short list. But like you said, Mike Evans, he's he's pretty darn impressive too. So it's a really interesting conversation. But Musab, how about you? I'd love to hear your take on where Mike ranks amongst the all time Buccaneers.
Yeah, for me, I have to go number one just because I mean,
Oh,
when I'm a Buccaneers fan, I mean, I didn't see Derek Brooks, or I didn't. None of us saw Leroy Selman
right,
play,
yeah,
but
right,
yeah. So for that reason, I mean, that's why I gotta go Mike. I mean, I would easily put him, top three.
for sure,
The guys you
absolutely,
mentioned are definitely good arguments, and I would probably say, you can, put Rondé Barber up there as well. But
for sure.
Mike Evans is who I've been seeing since he got drafted. Especially, I mean, I remember it was the whole kind of Johnny Manziel hype, and then that's when I learned, well, then so this is a guy that Johnny Manziel has been throwing to, and then
Right.
the rest is history. You know what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
I didn't realize it at first, the first couple seasons, but as time went on, to think about how consistent he's been with hitting 1,000 yards or more, it's nuts. And it's not only just he's kind of just those kind of stat patter people either. I mean, he's phenomenal, amazing. He's got the height, the speed, just everything about it. So and I'm one of the actually I don't say I'm one of the few, but I don't think I'm ever gonna get rid of that alarm clock Mike Evans jersey. I don't care how many people hate it or how many people just want to forget about that time. I feel
Right.
like that was kind of iconic. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything else going on around Mike Evans might have been crap, including the uniforms, but by golly, Mike Evans, he was racking up the 1,000 yards, for better or for worse, death taxes and Mike Evans hitting 1,000 receiving yards in a season. So yeah, it was really cool to see him kind of, put it all together and do his thing and get to that 1,000 yard mark. And shout out to Baker, shout out to the coaching staff because they all had faith and they were all able because that game was not over. Like they could have very easily just taken a knee and said, "Hey, no, we're not screwing up our playoff chances." But they had, the kind of the balls and the courage, or I don't want to sound too dramatic, but they were just, they put all that aside, say, hey man, we got a chance at history here. We got to get our man in. And it was, a lot of other teams, like someone brought this up. The Dallas Cowboys benched Cooper Rush because he was going to hit $500,000 bonus if he played a certain amount of snaps. So the Cowboys benched him, and the Bucs had to pay $3 million to Mike Evans. This was not any cheap little like handout. $3 million is a lot of money. So I was really impressed to see the Bucs just kind of go full force behind him, and it was really cool. So I was really impressed by that. But speaking of Baker Mayfield, I mentioned him. This wasn't necessarily his best game statistically, but man, he was impactful. I thought this was his like most important game as a Buck. Maybe not most impressive, maybe not most robust or whatever. But man, he really got the game going because there was some malaise there in the middle of the game. You kind of were feeling on edge, not sure if the Bucks were going to pull this thing out and go to the playoffs. But Baker had a little run. He got a little feisty. He got up. I think he stepped over a Saints defender. Can't remember which guy it was, but that kind of
Hmm.
caused a ruckus. And it felt like the energy got brought up by Baker doing that. And that's kind of what, a lot of the advanced metrics and stuff like that maybe say, oh, Baker might not be as good as his production says, but, I think he makes up for that in his leadership ability and his ability to lift his teammates up. And that's something you can't measure, you can't quantify it. So I was really impressed with Baker Mayfield, all of that being said. So Zach, you're the resident Baker Mayfield president of the fan club. I'm speaking his praises here. I want you to, what were your thoughts on Baker's performance?
Yeah, I think the big thing to take away from both what you said and kind of what we've seen all season is Baker's a dog. Like there's no debate on how bad he wants to win and how important his, for what the young kids are saying, aura is around this franchise. Like he is the guy when it comes to this franchise, and I think it's fun to see that kind of play through or play out and him be able to play well. Because you're right, it wasn't his best game. Granted, the one interception he threw, kind of a bogus. It was tipped to the line, but he did throw a pick. So it's like we see that and we're going, oh well, here we go. Now we're gonna get into him forcing it, and it's gonna be another pick.
Right. Yeah.
And he kind of brought it all in and just became that dog that we needed. And it's fun to watch and fun to see, and especially in important games like this, that he can bring everybody kind of together and get everyone fired up. I love it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you can see it sometimes. He's got the angel on his shoulder, the devil on his shoulder, like someone kind of whispering, like, hey man, force this throw, like do something silly. And then he's like, no, let's chill out. Let's throw the ball away. Let's scramble for a few yards. There have been times where he still listens to the devil. I get it. Like there's times where he still puts the ball in harm's way, but there's also been way more times that he's been smart with it. He just kind of takes his lumps. So I've been really impressed. It was a really, really impressive performance for him. But Musab, how about you, man? What were your thoughts on Baker's performance and how he contributed to just kind of the energy being brought up in the middle of the game?
I mean, yeah, him and the boys has turned it around big time in the second half. But I mean, as Zach said, and I feel like this is the best definition of Baker Mayfield is that, yeah, he's a dog. I mean, I saw on Graham Barton's Instagram story after the game, he shared a couple of little clips, and Baker Mayfield was like banging heads, with like Ben Bredesen, Graham Barton, and it wasn't just a little light tap. I mean, this guy was like super amped up and something. So I'll tell you this, guys. I just feel like it's just so hard, first of all, to be a quarterback, and it's so hard to be a perfect quarterback. I mean,
Of course, yeah. Absolutely.
So these guys will always make mistakes here and there, but I just feel like you really can't hate on Baker Mayfield, whether you're a Buccaneers fan or not. I mean, this guy has been through some rough things, and the Browns didn't believe in him. Then he traveled around a little bit, and he finally found his right fit. I think that's really what it is, and he is a born leader. Some of these guys who are quarterbacks around the league, sure, they're good, but they just don't have that. They don't give me that kind of leader vibe. You know what I'm saying? So I'm sure during halftime as well, I'm sure he fired up the boys as well. And yeah, as you mentioned as well, the whole kind of angel devil thing. I like that. I think that's really good because, yeah, sometimes, it gets the best of him. But at the end of the day, I mean, yeah, it's just, especially when you're going through, kind of some rough patches, especially in that first half. And, you got a couple good runs in and, getting up in the defender's grill. That fires you up, when your quarterback is getting mad and pissed and, he's also fired up. He's motivating the guys. He's not quitting. That makes a huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just on the one hand, like, would you prefer him to maybe slide a few more times? Sure, protect himself because he's an important part of this team. Like you want him to stay healthy and all that stuff. Also protect the football. But, that's part of who he is. He likes to get in there, kind of get dirty. It gets him going, it gets the people going, like that Will Ferrell quote. So, it's, you kind of got to weigh the options. And for Baker, like that, sometimes you just got to let Baker bake, you got to let him be him. And that's part of it. And like you mentioned, the running 68 yards rushing, career high. I mean, that's it's not Lamar Jackson stuff or anything, but it's pretty impressive. It was a really interesting game for him and a really, really fascinating performance. But on the flip side of that, Liam Cohen kind of had a weird game as a play caller. It was the first time, I think the best way I can put it is it felt for me like the Bucs were winning and doing well offensively in spite of his play calls. They weren't necessarily winning because of them, which has been the case most of the season. He's been fantastic most of the year, but this was the first time I was watching the game and I was like, "Ooh, man, what's going on with this game plan?" Because man, Baker was absolutely throwing dots. Like he was that throw to J-Mac for the touchdown. That's one of the best throws you'll see all year. So that's kind of like he scrambled for 68 yards. That's kind of what it took for the Bucs to win this game. And, this offense kind of allowed the offense to be less about execution and more about scheming guys open and making things easier. And it didn't feel that way for the first time pretty much all year. Is this an area of concern for y'all? Musab, I'll start with you, man. What were your thoughts on Liam Cohen's performance with the game plan? And is this something to monitor moving forward? Or, hey, it's a rookie play caller and it's a division matchup. Wash your hands of it, move on. What are your thoughts?
I want to say a little bit of that, as you said, kind of wash your hands and move on. I feel like, I'm sure there's always a reason. Perhaps maybe we just kind of approached, the start of the game a little bit differently because it's the Saints and, obviously they're, no way in hell gonna, lock in an NFC South. It was really us and the Falcons. So
Right.
perhaps maybe he kind of wanted to get a little, have a little bit of fun with it or something. Maybe try a couple of things out. I don't know. I mean,
Right.
that's just what I think. But by all means, Zach and Carter, please do let me know what y'all think about that, because I don't know. I mean, I did think it was odd. Of course, I feel like a lot of guys were, a lot of my buddies were wondering, why is Bucky not, getting more action, and why are they not
Oh,
utilizing Bucky better? So,
right.
yeah, that definitely kind of caught my eye a little bit. But I'm assuming, and I mean, it woke him up and the rest of the offense up that this stuff can't work out. You gotta just stick to the fundamentals and do what you've been doing. You know what I'm
For
saying?
sure. Yeah, absolutely. And he's done such amazing things to revolutionize this run game and kind of push it into the 20th century, at least, if not the 21st century, because it had been stuck for so long, just kind of spinning their wheels running the football. And for them to run it only 5 times in the first half, that was just, or excuse me, hand the ball off to Bucky 5 times in the first half. Baker had some scrambles. But yeah, it was just weird. It was a bit odd to see. And then they had that weird designed quarterback run. Like, I love that Baker ran for 68 yards, but I don't know if you need to be just, ringing up too many designed quarterback runs for him. That's not his thing. It was just really weird in a key third down. But it happens. You move on. But Zach, how about you, man? What were your thoughts on the game plan and how Baker and the offense were able to kind of overcome it, so to speak?
Yeah, I think that we had talked in the chat before or during the game. It almost felt like we were trying too hard to get Evans
Right. Yeah.
the
Record early.
record. So
Mhm.
it's like I understood it, and I think we had even touched on, at least I had touched on other shows, to expect to kind of force the ball to Evans. While I don't agree with it, I think that that's just kind of the route that they took.
Yeah.
And I think that the halftime adjustments that were made were like, all right, look, we're going to try our best, but we need to win this game. We need to play our football.
Mhm.
And I think that's why you saw such a drastic change in the second half, because they went to Evans when they had to or when they could, but it wasn't like we've got to get him the ball. This has got to happen. So it was. I think that for me to say that Cohen that it's a concern, I think is crazy at this point, because if we think about it, this is maybe his second bad game all year.
Right.
Like,
That's a great point. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I'm not stressing it. It happens. It happens to everybody. I trust in Cohen. I'm happy that he's here with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, at this point, we could be talking about Liam Cohen as a head coach pretty soon.
Probably.
Right, for better or for worse, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing for whatever team hires him. Yeah, it's going to be interesting moving forward to kind of monitor that storyline. But yeah, I'm with you. I think it's more of a wash your hands of it kind of thing. It's not, it's not the norm. It's just kind of a departure from the norm, a temporary lapse. So yeah, hopefully they can bounce back in this Commanders game coming up, which we'll preview in the second half. But if you're looking for the Liam Cohen of most of the season for your wardrobe, if you're looking for some quality stuff to don while the playoffs are about to happen, we've got the Rays are right around the corner. Spring training is right around the corner. It's only about a month and a half away. So definitely head to shop.rblrsports.com. You can type in that promo code Cannons, CANNONS, for 10% off your entire order. Definitely head there. We've got all of your Tampa Bay sports needs covered in regards to, upgrading your wardrobe, because we all need that, new year, new you. But anyways, as we mentioned, the Bucs are taking on the Washington Commanders this weekend, Sunday night, 8:30. They're playing at Raymond James. They managed to get the 3 seed because the Rams lost to the Seahawks this past weekend. So, that's kind of fun. What are y'all's thoughts on getting the Commanders? Like, I know that it was kind of up in the air who the Bucs would play if they managed to win the division. So were y'all happy with the Commanders? Do you think maybe you would have preferred the Packers? What are your thoughts, Zach? I mean, who would you have preferred to play, or is the Commanders fine? Oh, you're muted.
Oh,
Big
here
dog.
comes the mute bug.
I've been doing so good without
I know
it.
we've all been doing so well. It's all good. It's all good.
No, I think last week I said I wanted the Commanders, but I do believe that the Packers just had a pretty bad injury. He just had surgery, if I'm not mistaken, Watson.
Mhm.
So I'm not mad about Washington. I'm comfortable with Washington, but at this point, Green Bay doesn't scare me Green Bay scares me less than Washington does, because Washington's got They brought in Lattimore after we played them, and Lattimore he's always given us fits. So it's gonna be interesting. I'm comfortable with Washington, but I think with Watson out, I would have been more comfortable with Green Bay.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean Watson's a big time playmaker. He would have given the Bucs secondary fits because they're the Packers are one of the best, most well-run offenses in the NFL. Matt LaFleur does a great job over there, and Jordan Love, an elite quarterback. So that would have been a tough matchup as well, especially with Watson. Hey, Tampa Christian High alumni. So it's cool to see him go out there, but unfortunate with the injury, obviously. But yeah, they're both really good teams. I don't know if I would feel more comfortable with the Packers. I think it'd be pretty much equal, 6-1, half a dozen the other type of thing. But Musab, how about you, man? Maybe you have a difference of opinion. Maybe you're more strongly like, no, they needed to play the Packers. What are your thoughts?
I mean, it's playoff time, so I feel like any matchup is going to be tough.
Absolutely.
But I'm pretty even with Packers or the Commanders. Both of them have their strengths, but I mean, yeah, piggybacking off of Zach, it would be nice to play the Packers, with a guy like Watson out, because my biggest fear right now with the Commanders is I just hope Daniels doesn't toy around with our pass rush and starts racking up yards himself, because I mean, he's right behind Lamar Jackson, as a
Yep,
dual threat
absolutely.
quarterback. So, and he's only a rookie too. So, yeah, that's just my biggest fear is I just don't want a quarterback like Daniels exhausting our defense, and our defense already isn't anything special or hasn't showed anything special, unfortunately, this year. So, yeah,
Right. And like you mentioned, the dual threat ability is huge for him.
yeah,
He's I filtered it to only go against zone because that's pretty much all the Bucks run, but he has the highest scramble rate versus zone in the NFL, even higher than Lamar Jackson, which even higher than Baker Mayfield. I know Baker likes to scramble a little bit. But yeah, Jaden Daniels, my goodness, he could give the Bucks some absolute fits. Second in EPA per play versus zone as well. Just really, really impressive stuff. So yeah, I don't know what to make of Jaden Daniels in this Commanders offense because it's a tough one to game plan against. Cliff Kingsbury's done a pretty good job of, scheming his way towards a successful season with a rookie quarterback behind a subpar offensive line. I don't think too many people expected this from the Commanders this soon. I think people were high on Jaden Daniels, but for him to be this good this early is really impressive. And it speaks to the job that not only Jaden Daniels has done, but also his supporting cast and the offensive coordinator, Cliff Kingsbury. But are there any areas that you think that maybe the Bucs can exploit? Overall, the Commanders are really good offensively, but they're kind of like the Bucs. They're kind of rough on defense, despite having Dan Quinn, a defensive-minded coach. This all sounds very familiar to Bucs fans because it's kind of what the Bucs are. So there are certainly some areas to exploit with the Commanders on the defensive side of the ball. Zach, I'll start with you, man. What are your thoughts on some areas that maybe the Bucs have an advantage?
I think our front seven can beat their front seven. If I'm being honest, or their defensive seven. I'm confident in our run game against Washington, and I know it's crazy to think about with their D line, but I'm confident in our ability, and I think that's something we can exploit because they're going to be expecting us to pass the ball against that front seven, in my opinion. So I think we are right there and able to not walk all over them, but I think we're able to be successful in the run game.
Yeah, I mean, they're 19th in EPA per rush allowed, so that's kind of tough. Fourth lowest rush defense grade on PFF. So yeah, that definitely speaks to a run defense that can be taken advantage of. So yeah, I'm with you. I think that running the ball, kind of like last week, could be huge. And there's no Mike Evans 1,000 yards to shoot for this time. So really no excuses if Bucky's out there only getting 5 rushes in the first half. That's probably not a great sign of what's going on. But yeah, I think that's a huge thing, especially for the Bucs, because like you said, they've been great running the football this year. Obviously, that's a huge strength for them. So being able to take advantage of the Commanders being so weak in that area, that's going to be a huge area for the Bucs to exploit. But Musab, how about you, man? Any advantages that you see for the Bucs coming into Sunday?
Yeah, I'll probably say, I mean, yeah, as y'all mentioned already with the run game, what I do have to say is I mean, first of all, we gotta use the run game and the pass game. But on top of that, I am very optimistic and I feel very confident about our offensive line. And I only say that because I just feel like when shit hits the fan for us in the first half, like this Saints game, it also affects Baker. I feel like when Baker's not relaxed, I mean, as simple as it sounds, yeah, when your quarterback's not relaxed, and yeah, I mean, nothing's gonna work out. So, and I feel like that really does affect Baker. So what we got to do is, first of all, I mean, we got to start out hot, use our run game and our pass game, but definitely take advantage of their poor run defense, and I think our boys, up front can get the job done too. So I think that's super important that, we don't kind of play around like we did this past Saints game. I know it won't happen again. It just, it was kind of just a pop-up kind of issue temporarily. So those are kind of the big things I'm looking for, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like you mentioned, the pass game's still going to be huge because Washington, as bad as they are against the run, also pretty bad against the pass. They're 21st in EPA per pass allowed, sixth lowest coverage grade on PFF. So there's areas to exploit throughout this Washington defense. That's the good news. So if it turns into a shootout, the Bucs can keep up with them because the Bucs have a really good offense. The Commanders, unfortunately, don't really have a great defense. So that's something that's going to be really interesting to watch. But focusing on injuries, Jamel Dean, limited participant today at practice. Antoine Winfield Jr., a full participant, as well as Troy Hill. He hasn't really played this year. He's more of a slot guy, so I'm not expecting him to be a potential Dean replacement. But the good news with him, he can sort of more so be like a Christian Izien replacement, maybe allow Tyke Smith to potentially shift out to safety for a few snaps here and there. So I'm kind of excited to see what he can do in whatever role he is, whether it's limited or if it's special teams, what have you. So that's kind of a fun thing to look at. But yeah, hopefully Dean can pull through because with him out there, it gives you just a little bit more confidence. I know he's struggled at times throughout the season, but compared to the backup options, he's obviously a significant upgrade. So yeah, I'm pretty excited to see him play. But for Washington, they've got relatively healthy, like Marshawn Lattimore was questionable going into this week, but he was a full participant on Wednesday, so it's looking like he's on track to play. So that's another arrow in the Commanders' quiver. So that's going to be something to monitor for Sunday's game. But are there any low key X factors? Maybe some things that people aren't really thinking about for each team. I think I'll get things started for Washington. Alameda Zacchaeus. He's a wide receiver. He's 18th in targets per route run, which actually leads the team, surprisingly enough. I know that Terry McLaurin, rightfully so, gets a lot of the headlines because he's their number one, but Zacchaeus has been pretty good this year as well. Cliff Kingsbury's done a great job of being able to incorporate him into this offense. And for the Bucs, I think Rachaad White coming out of the backfield could be big because Bucky, known commodity. He's not going to surprise anyone anymore. He is very much on the top of people's minds. So, maybe you get those two running back sets and you get Rachaad White on a swing pattern or whatever, incorporate him into the pass game, which he does a wonderful job of doing. So that's my two X factors for this week. But Musab, how about you, man? What are some X factors that people aren't really thinking of for this matchup Sunday?
Well, on the Bucs side, I'm not thinking of anything, hidden or like a hidden gem or something.
Right,
but
I get you.
What I am expecting, though, is I'm expecting obviously our pass rush game to, do the best it can, but more importantly, Vita Vea to cause any disruption he can, because he always does that. And I think it's going to be very important this game as well. And, on top of that, I feel like, if our pass rush game isn't, at best, and if it's only Vita Vea, putting in the work, the thing that kind of scares me is those kind of quick passes, that Daniels dishes out to those guys. And hell, even we've had issues with, leaving these tight ends open. So my only fear is, sure, our DB room obviously is always concerning. It's been concerning. That's another story. But I just feel like, when we are, looking good on our defense, even when we're looking good on our pass rush, I just feel like, we still can't just kind of, slip up and let Daniels get the ball out for a quick pass or something. Because I feel like it always kind of bites us in the ass is when, especially those third down conversions. I believe the Saints actually had 2 fourth down conversions, I think in the first quarter or first half. And it just sucks. It's a shitty feeling. It puts you down. It's exhausting to the defense. Our defense already isn't anything special this year. So it's going to be an all hands on deck situation. So Vita Vea and then the quick pass game for the Commanders is, the two things I feel like could be a really big game changer this game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's deflating. I think the whatever the feeling that Baker, stepping over a defender, whatever good feeling that is, the opposite was those fourth down conversions. That was sort of the opposite end of the spectrum. And Vita Vea in the pass rush, that's a really big thing because the Commanders have the 11th lowest pass block rating in the NFL. So that offensive line is sort of being schemed away because it's not necessarily strength. They're not doing an amazing job up there. They don't have the Bucs offensive line. They're struggling a little bit. So Vita Vea is a huge guy to look for. But Yaya Diaby, I believe he was the NFL Defensive Player of the Week this past week. Shout out to him. He had a great game against the Saints. So hopefully he can carry that momentum into the playoffs, and maybe he can make some big plays. Maybe get a little strip sack in there. Force a fumble. That'd be a lot of fun. But Zach, how about you, man? Any kind of under the radar things that you're looking for each team that can make a big difference?
Yeah, I mean, I think Marshawn Lattimore for Washington. He knows Tampa. I mean,
Right, yeah.
We've dealt with him for a very long time in New Orleans, so he knows Tampa. He knows Mike Evans. I'm pretty sure he's the one that Mike Evans pushed over on the sideline when he was messing with our quarterback. So
right.
They have history, and I think that he's good at getting in Mike Evans' head, and I'm with it. So I think that that's something that we need to keep an eye on. And then for the Bucs, I would love to say Shaq Barrett if he comes in and plays, but I don't see him being an X factor yet. So I'm going to go with probably another Payne Durham situation. Payne Durham or Devin Culp, kind of like we've seen. I don't know how healthy Otten is yet. So low-key X factor is going to be one of our tight ends if Cade Otten isn't in.
Yeah, and he was limited on Wednesday.
So we haven't heard, like, it's not a yes or no yet from what I understand. So it's going to be if Otten's out, I think expect Payne Durham to have another, 2 games, 2 touchdowns now, his first 2 in his career.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much longer it'll be a surprise.
Right.
But he's my low-key X factor this week if Otten's out.
Absolutely. No, that's a great shout out because he kind of came into the league. The big plus with him was his size and his red zone targetability, if you will. So I think that him stepping up and being able to kind of be not a safety blanket for Baker necessarily in the red zone, but just a guy that, Baker doesn't have to worry about. He's
a reliable target.
Yeah, exactly. And Devin Culp is explosive. I really like Devin Culp.
I'm so excited for him, dude.
Absolutely. Those Washington tight ends, man. I don't know what the Bucs are doing with them, but they seem to figure it out. So yeah, I'm pretty excited to see how both of those guys can continue to develop moving forward, even into next season. But specifically for this weekend, if Otten is out, like you said, the knee thing. Oh man, I don't know what to expect from him. Even if he's able to suit up, you don't really know what Cade Otten you're getting because he's been really productive this year. But he's also got some some mileage on those tires. He's been playing quite a bit, especially with Godwin and Evans out for that extended period of time in the middle of the season. So that's a really interesting thing to monitor, the tight end situation for the Bucs. But there are also some big time matchups to focus on. Obviously, we talked about some kind of low key things, but there's some kind of individual matchups, so to speak, or as individual as you can get in football, really. But for me, I know this is going to kind of sound strange, but Todd Bowles versus Cliff Kingsbury. I think that those are two guys that they can be really good, but we've also seen them struggle quite a bit. We've seen both ends of the spectrum for both of them. So I'm going to be
a struggle from Todd Bowles.
Right. Well, there were the times when he was just a defensive coordinator for the Bucs that defense was pretty good.
I'll give you that.
Yeah, for sure. So, with healthier teams, he had some good years, just like with Cliff Kingsbury. He had some good years with the Cardinals, but good gracious, he also had some rough ones. So, it's kind of the good with the bad. So I think both of those guys sort of how their game plans matches up. And also Bowles with his second half adjustments. They've only allowed 6 points in the second half in the past, 4 or 5 weeks. It's been kind of a weirdly kind of quirky stat, but also kind of fun. It's kind of an impressive thing. So that's my big time matchup to focus on this Sunday. But Musa, what's your big time matchup for this Sunday night matchup?
My big time matchup's probably got to be. I kind of want to emphasize a little bit more about the Commanders' offensive line and Daniels, and while I do think that Vita Vea will still be a contributing factor, as you mentioned, our outside linebackers need to really apply that pressure on the sides, because what I've noticed as well is in the past,
when we come out hard on the sides, our defensive ends, outside linebackers coming right or left, trap the quarterback a little bit, and that's when they get in real trouble, and that's when you can't move around, and that's when we get those sacks or whatever. So that's what I'm looking at big time is not only just Vita Vea, but also our outside linebackers, defensive ends, everyone just stepping up, causing as much as disruption as they can. Because with all due respect, I am always going to be worried about our DB room.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the quarterback contained, that's a huge thing. I mean, my goodness, like being aggressive on the edges, but like you said, also keeping him in the pocket, because if he escapes, that's GG. Like that's
Yeah.
he's one of it's him and Lamar. Like those are the top two, and I think the gap between them is a little narrower than I think people may realize, especially now because Lamar's turning into like, Peyton Manning out there as a quarterback. Like he's just been so insane throwing the ball that it's almost like him running the ball as a secondary thing. But that's just crazy to think about. But yeah, Jaden Daniels, I mean, my goodness, if you let him get out there and do his thing, yeah, it's going to be a long game for the Bucs defensively for sure if that happens. Zach, how about you, man? Any big time matchups you're focusing on this Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, I touched on it earlier, but I think Lattimore versus Evans it could be very good for us, or it could be very bad for us, because this is one of those, like, when I think of rivalries against Mike Evans, like my main one always goes to Lattimore and Evans. Like those two have been battling it out for years. So I think that could make or break how good of a game we have. If Mike Evans is having a great game on Lattimore, or if Lattimore is getting in Evans' head, I think that's going to determine kind of how our offense runs, whether we're running the ball or passing the ball. So it's going to be interesting, and I think that could be kind of a game-changing thing for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Evans and Lattimore, that's the, there's all those memes of, and Bucky Irving rushes for 6 yards, and then it's like a video of two guys fighting, and it's Mike Evans and Lattimore down the field. That's kind of what we're expecting, right? Like that's what we're looking for, because those two guys don't like each other at all. No love lost between those two guys. As much as Mike seems like a great dude in the press conferences, and very low key off the field, I don't know what Marshawn Lattimore does to him, but it kind of just activates something, and it turns him into a seemingly a different person. So that's definitely going to be fun to watch for sure. But speaking of fun, there's also some other wild card matchups this weekend. I wanted to get y'all's thoughts on any upsets that maybe you're going to predict from around wild card weekend. Zach, I'll throw this question right back at you. Who's a big upset for this weekend for the wild card matchups?
I'll be honest. I haven't really been paying. I've solely paid attention to Tampa. I think Denver could surprise some people.
Absolutely.
I don't know if we can call them upsets, even though I think that they're technically they're 14-3, like 14.
Right, I get you.
Whatever. They're not technically an underdog, but they sort of are if you look at the seeding. But the Vikings, like there's. I don't consider that an upset.
Right.
They're the second best team in on that side. So I think if I had to pick one like kind of sleeper team that's not Tampa, I'm going Denver.
Wow, going Denver. I like it. Bo Nix, he's not Jaden Daniels, but he can run the ball a little bit. He's kind of
like in every aspect, he's been a solid quarterback. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, he's kind of got the similar. It's a bit more extreme than Baker for sure, but kind of the low average depth of target, just like letting his playmakers eat. Sean Payton's doing a great job over there scheming, as much as you hate to admit it, because it's Sean Payton. But he's been doing a great job. So yeah, Denver's definitely a big time team to watch in these playoffs, because they're young and they're hungry. Like they have nothing to lose. There's no expectations. Like no one really expected them to make the playoffs, and now they're like in there and they're just going to have some fun. So they're a really fun team.
I think our producer, I know our producer Eureka is a Denver fan, but I think he was at one point saying maybe 6 games.
Right. Yeah.
Wanted them to win 6 games, and now they're a playoff team. So it's like I think they've already surprised a lot of people. So like you said, they're kind of playing with house money at this point.
Absolutely. So why not have fun with it? So I'm with you. I'm excited to see what they can do. My own upset, it's kind of like what you were saying with the Vikings. I don't know how much of an upset it is, but I'm going to go with Steelers over Ravens. We were talking how great Lamar Jackson is and all that, but man, the Steelers, Mike Tomlin does a great job, and their defense is just so just well polished. It's just like they don't screw up. They don't do anything wrong. They're just going to go out there and kind of smother you to death. So they do a really impressive job defensively. And there's no formula to stop Lamar Jackson. There's no formula to beat him. But I think the Steelers have come as close as anyone's going to come to stopping Lamar Jackson. So I've got the Steelers over the Ravens. That's kind of my upset pick for this weekend, just because. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of a gut feeling. I'm okay with Lamar Jackson continuing to play football because he's a lot of fun.
If I'm not mistaken, Lamar has struggled like pretty bad against Pittsburgh throughout his career. I think he's got like 2 or 3 wins. Like that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of familiarity there. Familiarity breeds content. You know, all those cliches. But yeah, I'm kind of picking the Steelers. I don't know. Definitely not, lock of the week or whatever nonsense you want to say.
Yeah, and they split the season series already.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It can be done.
I could see it. And I would consider that an upset.
Yeah, I would too. Because I think a lot of people have the Ravens doing some dangerous things with how explosive their offense has been. But Musab, how about you, man? What's your upset for this weekend?
God, I'm going to be honest with you. I'll probably say, if anything, maybe, the Broncos, I guess. I mean, there's no other upset I see out here.
Right.
And Carter, I am one of those people that, thinks the Ravens are going to do dangerous things.
For sure.
I just don't think I don't think the Steelers have it in them. I mean, yes, their defense is phenomenal and all that, but at the end of the day, sure, as Ray Lewis himself said, defense wins championship, but you got to get points up on the board too. And they won the first time against the Ravens, but the Ravens beat them 34-17, and Derrick Henry went off. He racked up like 160 yards. I mean, Lamar Jackson was out there cooking. So I don't know. I don't think it's going to be close. If anything, I'd probably just root for the Broncos because, I mean, there's no other upset that I can see happening, and the other ones aren't really true upsets. So,
right. Yeah,
give me the Broncos because I've had enough of these Bills Mafia. I got a colleague who is a huge Bills fan. Even though she doesn't really watch it much, but she doesn't shut up about it anyways. We don't need to talk about my work issues.
Oh man!
Next week's episode of Therapy with Musab.
Right.
Yeah, RBLR therapy.
Right, working on workplace relationships. Getting along with your coworkers. No, I'm with you though on the Bills. I don't know what it is, but their fans are like they're no longer lovable losers. They're kind of annoying. They haven't really won.
They think their team is like this great team. They have a really good offense and just an awful defense.
Right. Yeah.
So it's so confusing and like they're almost like the next Cowboys. It feels like
yeah.
I feel like people in upstate New York or outside the city just they can't find too much happiness in life, so they'll latch on to anything they can. And obviously, I'm sure they take pride in being the only team in New York, technically. So there's that.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that is technically true. Like you said, the only team that actually plays football in New York, it is the Bills. So yeah, I feel you. Maybe there's a bit of that going around, but yeah, it's going to be a really fun weekend of football. I'm really excited to see these games and what these teams can do. But we've got a couple of segments left before we log off. We're going to go hit you with an over/under and then some predictions, and we'll get out of here and get out of y'all's hair. But my over/under, I'm taking the reins this week. I'm going with a baker's dozen. The 13 is the money line for me. Completions in the first half for Baker Mayfield. Baker's dozen, haha, very funny. So do you think he goes over or under 13 completions in the first half? Zach, I'll start with you, man. What you got?
That's a big number.
It is a big number.
That's a big number. I'm gonna go under.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely not a lock on my end. I could see him having a big game, and because of the lack of defense on Washington. But I mean, if he has 13 each half, that's 26 completions. I'm going under.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a tough number because this could turn into a shootout.
Exactly.
So it could be early, and the Bucs are like, oh shoot, we gotta put up some yardage, gotta put up some points. So yeah, I'm gonna go over just because I don't know. I think it's an interesting kind of an interesting thought process. Obviously, I'd love for Baker. She agrees with me. You think Baker's gonna go over, right? Right? Yeah, I think she's got it. So yeah, I'm gonna go over as well. But Musab, how about you, man? What's your over under on Baker's completions at 13?
Yeah, I mean, just in the first half, oof, man, this one is one of those bets where like I'm staying the hell away from that. Whether I'm going over or
Right.
under, I'm gonna lean under just because I just feel like there's just other opportunities, especially with our run game. If our run game's looking real good in the first half, why just keep on trying to get some passes out there, try to exploit their defense as much as possible. So I'm gonna lean under on this one, but it's very good. Very good. What do you call good bet? Or actually, not a good bet. I hope no one bets on that because it's
Right. No,
super
I get
risky. But good take. Good take.
Yeah, I get what you're saying though. It's a solid money line because it's
Hmm.
causing you doubt. I get what you're saying. I'm picking up what you're putting down. My next one is going to be just Mike Evans. Does he haul in a touchdown? Does he haul in a receiving touchdown? I'm going to go so the 0.5 if you want to say it over under 0.5 receiving touchdowns for Mike Evans. I'm going to go over. I think he hauls in a touchdown. Just because it's big game Mike. He's going to come through. I think he's going to have a good game. So I'm going to go over. I think he scores a touchdown. Musab, how about you, man? What do you think?
Oh man, honestly, I'm actually gonna say no. I just feel
Ooh,
like this
okay.
could be. Yeah, we just have so many options. I feel like as much as all eyes are on Mike Evans, we got to just focus on just getting anyone a touchdown. So it's definitely a huge possibility, of course, for sure. The guy's a red zone target as well. But I just feel like this is just something I feel like, the Commanders know. I feel like a lot of guys know. And that is, Mike Evans uses his height to his advantage, in the end zone. And, you'll see a couple of times Baker Mayfield kind of throw that high ball to him. And I just feel like that's just something that, the Commanders DBs are going to focus on, especially Lattimore. He's going to make sure he locks him down big time. So I'm not, unfortunately, say, yeah, just give me the under on this.
Yeah. So over and under. I like it. I like it. Zach, what are you and Hazel thinking? Y'all got the over or the under, or maybe you disagree. Maybe y'all have differing
You
opinions.
got over or under for Mike Evans? Can you say over? Can you say over? Over. All right.
Ooh,
Yep.
Oh,
okay.
We're going over. I think.
Ooh.
I do think he hauls in one at this point. Him and Jalen McMillan, I've got them both hauling in a touchdown because that's all they've been doing is catching touchdowns lately.
Absolutely. That's a great point. They're touchdown machines. They're Baker's favorite targets for good reason. They're both really, really stinking good. Yeah. So that's a great point. Yeah, I'm with you. I think over for the Mike Evans touchdown reception money line is solid. So we got one more segment, just predictions. We'll just give you who we think wins by how much. Zach, I'll give it right back to you and Hazel. Who do y'all got winning and by how much?
Can you say go Bucs? I think we've got Tampa 34-28.
Wow, 34-28 Tampa. All
I do
right.
think
ooh,
it turns
okay.
out to be a shootout, and I think that as crappy as I say our defense has been, I do think that they are a little bit better than Washington, in my opinion.
Wow, a compliment for the Bucs defense from
It's
Zach
hard.
Lane.
It hurts my heart to say it because
Mm,
I've been so negative on them all season.
Wow, that's great.
wow.
She's Hazel screaming
Yeah,
because she's like,
She
I'm
agrees. It's
screaming
crazy.
internally. Yeah.
"That's right. Who is this man that has replaced my father? Like this is not Zach. This is not Zachary Blaine. This is a clone that has come in and replaced him." Wow, that's crazy. We got to mark that down. But Musab, how about you, man? Who you got winning and by how much?
I'm going 27-24. I think Bucks get the win. It's gonna be a dog fight for sure. I feel like it really is. But knowing my luck and my hot takes and all that, this could be a completely ugly game, and who knows how it turns out. But I really do think that this is a actually serious good matchup. Probably one of the best matchups in the playoffs. So
Yeah,
this should be fun. I'm going to be praying to God from now until Sunday night that we don't let Daniels exploit us. That's really the only. I feel like come on, it's like the elephant in the room. All eyes are on him. So
yeah.
fingers crossed, guys.
Yeah, it's tough. We're talking about it. The Bucs are talking about it in their meetings. It's everyone's talking about Jaden Daniels, and then he'll go out there and still just absolutely shred the Bucs defense to pieces because he's Jaden Daniels. He's really good. It's easy to sit here and talk about it and say, oh, we got to focus on Jaden Daniels and all that stuff, and then it's harder to execute, unfortunately. So I'm with you. I think it's going to be a tough game. I unfortunately have the Commanders coming out on top. I got Washington 23-20. That's going to be, I think it's going to be close, and I wouldn't be surprised to see the Bucs pull this out, but I just think, man, it's tough to beat a team twice in a season. It's really difficult to do that. Washington is really good. Jaden Daniels really good. So that's who I've got. Hopefully I'm wrong though. I'd love to come back and hopefully I'm coming back and we're coming back with a Bucs W. Until then, we'll be on the Twitters and stuff. So definitely give us a follow on there at RBLR Bucs and at RBLR Sports before you log off, because we'll be giving you some in-game commentary, posting some cool graphics courtesy of our great producer, Eureka Wheeler. So definitely check us out there. You can also give us a like and a subscribe if you liked what you heard, because either we'll be coming back at you next week talking about the offseason, or we'll be talking about whatever divisional matchup that the Bucs have on deck. Either way, definitely stay tuned, because we're going to be having a lot of intense discussions either way. Definitely stay tuned. We really appreciate y'all for tuning in. Much love to my co-host for making my job easier. And as always, go Bucs.
Go Bucs.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.